Hi, in today's video, I'm going to tell you why go on mute is really shitty advice and what to do instead. But before I go any further, don't forget, subscribe to the channel and remember to hit that bell icon so you don't miss any of the future videos. My name's Gordon Mullen from Effective Remote Relationships, and I live and breathe remote collaboration. Now, we've all been on group calls, we've all heard the advice, please can everybody go on mute. But as I said, that is really shitty advice. If you imagine that you were in a group meeting or even a one-to-one conversation, and when you weren't talking, you have to do this. And then to speak, you have to take your hand off your mouth, say what you're going to say, and put your hand back on your mouth again. That's weird. That's not a natural conversation. But on an online call, it gets even worse. Because you're not in direct control of this, there's probably a little mute button down the bottom that you're searching around for and trying to find to click on before you can actually say what you want to say. So a lot of the time, you don't bother. And that causes a real problem. It's something that people don't realize. And this is why it's such shitty advice. There was a study done in 2014 that was published in the International Journal of Human Computer Studies, and it said that it's about misattribution of delays to the speaker rather than to the technology. Paraphrasing what it said is that if the delay is more than just over a second, actually 1200 milliseconds, 1.2 seconds, you are perceived as being less attentive, less extroverted, and less conscientious. Ask yourself, is that the kind of perception that you want people to have of you? So basically, people think you're not listening, you're not paying attention, you're not engaged with the conversation. And the other problem that causes for you as the person that's on mute is that you forget to unmute. So if somebody makes a point, you forget you're on mute, you start to talk, and then suddenly you get the chorus of, "Oh, Gordon, you're on mute." And then you're hunting around for the button again to actually click on that. Or you end up sort of remembering unmuting and you're jumping in now after the point's already moved on. It just totally wrecks the natural flow of conversation, and in a group environment as well. For the person that's actually, particularly for somebody like myself who is a speaker and a trainer, if I'm addressing a group or running a training, something like that, and I'm asking a question or asking for a response and everybody's on mute, and you've got this real effort that it takes for people to hunt around, find the button, unmute themselves, and then say something, you often feel like you are just talking to an empty room. And particularly if people haven't got their videos on, it's like, well, has everybody walked out? Has the software crashed? Has the network dropped off? Without, if everybody's on mute and say, particularly with videos off, it's incredibly distracting and it just feels really weird. And I'm sure you will have been on calls like this where somebody goes, so has anybody got anything to say? Tumbleweeds. So why do we do this? If it has such a negative effect, and we've all experienced what it's like, being on mute, forgetting to unmute, why do we do it? Why do we ask people to do it? And the obvious answer, of course, is background noise. We don't want the distractions of what's going on around that person. So what can we do instead? And the answer really to that is very simple, and it's one of two things, but they both achieve the same outcome, and that is find a way to cut out the background noise that doesn't require you to shut your microphone off. Now, those of you who've watched any of my previous videos will know what's coming. Get yourself a noise cancelling headset. So the one I'm wearing is quite a discreet one. It's the one that I normally wear when I'm doing trainings or if I'm addressing a group. I also have a larger full headset one. So this is one lovely, comfortable, wear all day, and has a more obvious boom microphone. These are great. I use mine for listening to music amongst other things, but obviously it is a bit more visually distracting. You do look a little bit like you're in air traffic control, but either of those, and I will drop the links into the comments or the description below, they massively help. As I'm doing here, I'm actually stood in my dining room. So I have the lounge next door. I've got the kitchen to the other side of me. I very often have that door open. I have my stepdaughter wandering in there to the kitchen. I have my wife wandering in there at the kitchen. I often have my wife in the other room on calls as well. I might have the patio door open into the garden and you can hear sort of all the noise from outside. We have 2 cats, but I'm never on mute. I have my microphone open. Every call that I'm on, every training that I'm on, my microphone is open 100% of the time. And it doesn't cause a problem because I'm using the right technology to cut out the background noise. Now, what that means is if you can get everybody to do that, is to have either a noise cancelling headset or a piece of software, and I'll come to that in a moment, then that means that they can have their microphones open. So when you ask a question, even if you don't have somebody that wants to, say a full sentence, you'll hear them go, yeah, okay. And all those little subtle verbal feedback that you get that you need when you're trying to collaborate with people remotely or have a conversation with somebody, but especially group conversations, that noise that you would hear from around the table, from around the room, as to whether people go, yeah, okay, or as you might get. And I'll give you a particular example. It was actually a software development team that I was working with. We were talking about one of the particular features that we wanted to build. We were talking about how that might get built. And as we went through that discussion, I heard, and I didn't actually see initially who it was, but I heard this, and that was enough for me to think, right, I need to stop. And I figured out who it was because then I looked at the faces that were on the video on the screen and I could see who it was kind of going like this. And I went, okay, George, looks like you don't quite agree. You've got something to say. And there was a point that needed to be raised that actually changed the way that we were going to solve that particular problem. Had he had his microphone shut, and especially if he hadn't had his camera on either, we quite probably would have just carried on with the original direction that we were going in that conversation, and we would have missed the contribution that he had to make. So that's why going on mute is actually really shitty advice. What you need to do is find a way to shut out that background noise. And picking up on what I said earlier on, I did say I would come back to this. Obviously, noise cancelling headsets with the current situation, some of them are short in terms of availability and are unfortunately a bit more expensive. There's a bit of price gouging going on at the moment. I would still recommend them. They are massively flexible. The ones that I use, both of the ones I use are Bluetooth. They connect to my smartphone as well and actually pair up simultaneously. So I can have all the benefits of this noise cancelling on phone calls as well as if I'm doing video calls or something like that on the laptop, or I'm doing a recording like this. But if you don't want a noise cancelling headset, if you want to just use a standalone microphone, and I would implore you, please don't use the microphone that's built into your laptop. They are generally pretty poor quality. Okay, if you must use a microphone that's not a headset, get yourself a USB microphone, a decent one. But they will still pick up the noise around you. So there is a piece of software that you can get called Krisp, and again, I'll drop the link into the comments below. That achieves very much the same effect. It cuts out the background noise. One thing just to watch out for that, though, is that it is designed to cut out anything that's not a human voice. What that means is that if your background noise is other people talking, it's not quite so effective. It's great at cutting out, sort of slamming doors and police sirens and traffic noise and all of that sort of stuff. Works fantastically well. Not so good at cutting out other human voices if they're close to you. But one benefit that piece of software does give you, which a noise cancelling headset doesn't, is that if the person on the other end has their microphone open, hasn't got a noise cancelling headset, and you can hear a load of background noise coming through from them, then you can use that Krisp software to actually noise cancel their audio feed. And I've done that a number of times. So even though I've got my headset on, I would use that software in addition to allow me to cut out the background noise from other people. But remember, all of this, the aim is to have a natural conversation, and anything that is requiring you to hunt around for buttons to push, and remember to push stuff, to be able to actually just talk or comment or agree or disagree with somebody, is really shitty advice. So please find a way to keep your microphone open. Your conversations will be much more natural and you will get better outcomes. Gordon Mullen, Effective Remote Relationships. I look forward to seeing you on the next video.